Leonard, over to you.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So before I share my screen, I just want to say, my background is in fine art. I studied fine art, and through teaching observational drawing for many years, I eventually started teaching anatomy students to observe better using touch and drawing. So primarily I'm teaching observation. So the drawings that you're going to see are all by medical students who have never drawn before. So I teach a method of observation which is called the haptico-visual observation and drawing method. Okay, it's a long name which you have to have. So when you publish papers, you've got to use something that sounds like that, but essentially it's touch and drawing. So I'll share the screen now, and I'll just start the slideshow over here. Okay, let me just get into presenter view. Okay, so this is the University of Cape Town in South Africa, just so we can locate ourselves. This is not the medical campus. The medical campus is around the corner of the mount. Pre-COVID, I was teaching classes of up to 20 people. So these are all medical students at the University of Cape Town. And this was a course in observation primarily. So the first thing I do is introduce the students to the drawing of a non-anatomical object, so a hammer. And I like to use this hammer because it has really nice geometries to it. You can see here that the student is she's using her finger, she's feeling the hammer while she's drawing it. And we'll get to more of that soon. So here's a closer up picture of the hammer she's drawing. Essentially, what she's doing is she's using one hand to feel the form of the hammer, and she's using the other hand to make concomitant marks on the paper that represent what she's feeling. And in this way, she's getting a much closer, or the students are getting a much closer observation of the object by using touch. And the drawing, the name of the type of drawing is called cross-contour drawing, as opposed to just contour drawing or blind contour drawing. So before we go further, I'll just explain briefly why the sense of touch. So this little figure is called a cortical homunculus, and it shows the amount of nerves from all the parts of the body that go to the sensory and motor cortex of the brain. Okay, so the hand takes up a huge part of the sensory cortex of the brain. And so it makes perfect sense to use the hand as well as one's eyes if one is observing an object. It just makes sense. Now, two professors at Queen's University in Canada, Professors Roberta Klatsky and Susan Lederman, they've been doing research into haptics from about 1985 until about 2012. And they identified 6 what they called exploratory procedures. So if you grab any object or you hand an object to somebody, we all, as human animals, we all do these things. We grasp something. We use what's called lateral motion to explore an object. When you go into a store, into a shop to buy, say, a jumper, and you see it's got a texture, you'll actually feel it to add to what you're looking at, so that you get more information about the object. Now, if we use these exploratory procedures, which they called, okay, if we use them actively, that's when we are now actively observing. So these are just drawings now, which show the form primarily, because anatomy students need to have a very good three-dimensional spatial awareness, a three-dimensional spatial understanding.
Maybe you ring them again. It's been...
And by using a touch, you are actually exploring the form, the shape of an object, and then drawing it. And again, you know, I say to them, you can throw these drawings away. Don't be precious about them. The primary function is learning. So now we get to say drawing the bones or the organs and whatever. And you can see that this person has been studying the head of the humerus, which is this bone in the arm. Okay. Another picture, we drew what's called the prosection, which is just basically the soft tissue, the flesh and the bone of an upper limb of the arm. And a student drew this. In fact, the first student you saw who was drawing the hammer, this was her drawing of that. This, for example, now, as you can see, this is a jawbone, right? The mandible. And this, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but this particular part is called the mandibular condyle. And so the student has focused here on this part. And you can see that a photograph only shows you so much. And yet the drawing marks, the marks will show you more. They'll speak more about the form. So marks, of course, have like a semiotic value, and especially, I mean, if they are marks made through cross-contour drawing. I'm sure you all know of Frank Aubach, the very famous, brilliant British artist. And he uses almost cross-contour marks. So each mark has a value to describe the form. Okay. Mm-hmm. Here, this student is drawing the base of the skull, and you can see he's feeling it. He's very engaged with it. And the marks are just helping him to understand more about this skull that he's observing. What we also do is we do life drawing, okay? But it's life drawing with a difference. So we've got, we have a model standing next to a living model standing next to a skeleton. And I get the students to draw the skeleton first, then to draw the model, and then to draw them both. And it makes them aware that these bones are inside them. Makes them aware, not in an intellectual way, but in a very, almost like, it's like a realization, like, my goodness, that's me, you know. Anyway, that's a whole other aspect to it. But these are the drawings that they do. These are 20-second gestural drawings. And I mean, I must say my jaw dropped when I saw this, because these two are medical students. They have not studied art. They don't have a concept of I can draw, I can't draw. Well, at first they have a concept that I can't draw, but I say to them, listen, can you write your name? Yes, well, that's drawing, which is exactly what it is. Here's the model again, you know, in a different pose. And, you know, I take them through a number of exercises as if you've studied life drawing, you'll know about. But so he was sitting on the floor at one point, and he turned slowly through 360 degrees. And of course, I said to the students, just keep looking, keep drawing on the same spot. And these are some of the results. So just in terms of the method I teach, like, what is touch? When you're exploring something using touch, it's gesture. You're making gestures, you're using those exploratory procedures of contour following, grasping, lateral motion. Remember, these are the exploratory procedures that Klatsky and Lederman classified. And of course, drawing is gesture, and we use cross-contour drawing marks. So touch is gesture, and drawing is gesture. And if we feel with one hand and draw with the other hand, we arrive at a much closer observation. So the benefits of this method are the enhanced observation of three-dimensional form, and of course of anatomical parts. So we are seeing a lot more. We are observing a lot more through touch and drawing. Then there's a memorization of the parts that takes place as a mental picture. So students report being able to close their eyes and actually see the things in their mind as a mental image. And then, of course, there's improved spatial awareness and the ability to orientate with what's called within the volume of anatomical parts. So like within the volume of the head, you can kind of know where you are when you're looking, say, at an MRI slice, which is two-dimensional. You can extrapolate from that slice to where you are in the volume of the head, which is very important for, say, people reading MRIs. And of course, I put on the last on the list is an ability to draw. These are some papers we've published on, how haptics and drawing enhance the learning of anatomy, etc. This paper here called Seeing with the Hands and with the Eyes, the contributions of haptic cues to anatomical shape recognition in surgery. This is written by someone whose name is Madeleine Keener and Richard Lowe. I've had a long conversation with Madeleine Keener. It's the most beautifully written paper. I mean, it's like poetry. And it just, well, it's not like poetry, but it's poetry to my ears. And it really talks about the importance of using touch in surgery. You can imagine if someone's open on the table, operating table, you've got to put your hands in and feel around as to where you are. Mm. Oh, we are now at acknowledgement and thanks. So thank you, Mark, for your kind invitation to speak. And of course, to thank the medical students and healthcare professionals for contributing their drawings for this talk. And we always acknowledge with gratitude the contribution of body donors to the University of Cape Town's Division of Clinical Anatomy and Biological Anthropology. And this is a kind of a trend throughout the world now, where you acknowledge if you're using cadaveric material in your presentation, then you do that. And now we have 5 minutes for questions, thoughts, and discussion. And this is just a very nice picture that a student took of me being very animated in the class, as happened. So I'll stop sharing now and